Hello everyone, welcome to this trial class by Smart Solver Academy. So, although we have a few audience, we hope that the session will still go well, and we would love it if you make it interactive, ask your queries, and try to stop us where we are not clear. So let's progress. Second, yeah, good. So this is a combined trial class for both our programs, How to Solve It and the Math Olympiad program. And we will go into the details of each of these separate programs in the next few slides. But before that, I just wanted to say who we are. So we are a team of 3 passionate educators, and we want to really spread the joy of mathematics amongst the Indian students, which unfortunately I think the school curriculum or the usual entrance exams don't convey enough. Here's a quote by my favorite mathematician, John von Neumann, where he says that mathematics is a primal neurological language, and we really hope that by taking our curriculum, you are able to feel this for yourself. But enough about us. If you want to know more, you can always visit our website, which will also be available to you in your emails after this talk. Okay, great. So before we start with the actual trial class, I wanted to say a few more words about our philosophy and our pedagogy. So there are many math classes around, and we want to tell you what distinguishes us from them. So in this program, what we really intend to do, in both the programs, what we intend to do is invigorate your logical faculties. We want you to learn the lessons for yourselves. And we want to facilitate that. We don't want to spoon feed you. We don't want to just provide you the solutions. So what will be more emphasized in this curriculum is how you arrive at the solution rather than just knowing the solution. Because if you know that thought process, if you can get trained in that, it will be very easy for you to become a good problem solver, and you'll be able to apply it to many aspects, even outside of mathematics. And that is our philosophy. Now, how will we come good on this philosophy? It will be with our instruction and the methodology we follow for that. So we want to formulate and reinforce a meta strategy for problem solving. And you will see through various examples that we take later in the course of this presentation and during the actual courses that we will emphasize that you follow a meta strategy to solve the problems and not give in to ad hoc approaches, because they don't usually lead you in. Just a second, I'll check. There are some chat messages.
I think we are doing chats.
Okay. All right, good. So that's the first point. Yes, the PPT gets stuck. Yeah. So one thing which you will realize is that we will try to present each solution of all the puzzles, the games, the questions you see in our courses as a consistent and logical story, which will be, I think, very unique. I haven't seen this as many places. And there is a famous article by Tim Gowers. Many of you might not know who he is, but he's a Fields medalist, the legendary mathematician, where he says that it is important to present a solution as perspicuous, which means that the solution should be presented such that you don't feel like a magical step has happened anywhere. So some of you might be experienced with Olympiad mathematics or have some familiarity with it. And you might know that oftentimes it feels like a rabbit was pulled out of the hat. What we want to do is actually unveil the magic trick to you so that you do not see it like a rabbit coming out of the hat, but it will still be wonderful. And another thing which we'll emphasize is that once you know the solution, either by yourself or by looking at the solution, you learn from it and not just move on. And we will show this by actually doing it for a few examples, where we will analyze and generalize each solution. We'll try to learn meta and specific principles from it. And we term this process as solutionization. And we'll, of course, cover a wide variety of techniques through the courses. Okay, great.
Here so, Siddharth, 1 second. I would just like to encourage the participants to turn on their videos so that it is easier for the speaker and for even the moderators, so that it is more interactive. If for some reason you can't do it, then you can't do it. But I just wanted to prompt you guys.
If you can do it, that will be great. So here are some meta principles that we will be following. And we'll actually be demonstrating these meta principles to you, some of them at least, in the course of today's presentation. And I think this is what we are really going to convey, that by following the meta principles, you can arrive at many solutions which were earlier out of your reach. These problems tend to be very difficult. And if you are not acquainted with them, you will be pretty much lost. At least I was when I started my journey. And these are things which some books do go into. But oftentimes I have realized that online or most books actually don't dwell a lot on these topics, which are, I think, more important than any individual solution. So here's a very simple meta principle, right? If you are stuck somewhere while problem solving, it's not only maths, any other problem solving aspect of your life. If you're stuck somewhere, you should go and question the last decision you made, which brought you to the current state where you're stuck. Oftentimes, just going back and thinking about, oh, what were the alternatives at that step helps a lot. In fact, so much so that it becomes implicit in a mathematician's way of thinking, but oftentimes they don't say it out explicitly, and students are sort of left to pick it up on their own. But we wanted to make this explicit. Another thing which is very, very common in a lot of Olympiad problems and a lot of puzzles that come up is that there will be a particular parameter, which you will see very shortly. And by just varying that parameter, you will realize that things become very easy if you just take the problem to its extreme ends, either by making the parameter very small or very large. Thinking about the penultimate step often helps, which just means that, oh, you want to get a particular solution, and you're just asking yourself, what could be the second last step? What could be the step which would lead me to the solution? Often thinking about this in reverse helps you arrive at the actual solution. And this, for me, is the punchline. This is George Polya's advice, that if you cannot solve a problem, you find an easier problem you can't solve. Like all of what I just said in so many slides and wasted so much of your time could be summarized in this one point, right? And this you should really take to heart from today's presentation. I don't think I need to even demonstrate how to use this advice, because it's so simple and so well written that when you are stuck at a problem, you just try to find an easier problem that you can't solve. And if you keep doing this, if you keep progressing, eventually you'll solve the problem you started. Okay, great. So enough about our pedagogy and philosophy. Now for some actual details about our program. So we have two programs, as I said, How to Solve It and the Olympiad program. So the How to Solve It program would last for about 8 to 10 sessions. Each session would be about 1.5 to 2 hours. The aim of the program is that you develop a meta thinking mindset. We will teach you about how to think and get to the solution rather than, just tell you what the solutions are. It will involve loads of games and puzzles, and it will have a flavor of Olympiad maths. The games and puzzles would be general. They could easily arise in a day-to-day conversation, for instance, but they would also have an element of Olympiad mathematics in them. And of course, during our lectures, we will do a lot of problem solving, and there'll be engaging home assignments, which would not feel like burden. I hope they would actually be so interesting that you might have trouble completing other homework because they won't. Yeah, sorry, Abhishek seems to have.
Yeah, so there is a question on the chat by Ishan. How do we know which is the easier problem since we cannot solve it either? So what is easy in quotes?
Okay, so the easiness of the problem is something which is subjective. Of course, what is easy for one might not be easy for somebody else. But as you become acquainted with the problem statement, you realize where the difficulty is. And once you realize where the difficulty is, you start to sort of take away from the problem while maintaining some essence of that difficulty. Of course, these are all more words. The best way to convey what this advice is to show you actually how it works in action. Let's see if we can get to this advice at some point today. We in fact will. You will see in the last puzzle that we take today how this advice is at play. Okay. So the easiness here just refers to taking away from the problem something or making some additional assumptions which don't take away at the spirit of the problem. Like the difficulty that you feel the problem has still survives, but you just get extra gadgets because of the assumptions that you made, or because there might be some parameter which you gave an actual value to. That would transfer to this advice here in this situation. Okay, good. I think there's another chat question. Oh, yeah, good. So let's move on. Okay. And now to the Math Olympiad program. So the Math Olympiad program will be the continuation of the How to Solve It program. Once you are acquainted with those techniques, we will start training you in a rigorous manner for the Indian Olympiad cycle. So the first step of the cycle is the IOQM, which is something which we did not have when we were growing up. We only had the RMO, but I think since many people are writing the RMO now, the IOQM has been introduced. So we will first take a prep course, which would train you for these exams all the way up to the Regional Maths Olympiad. And depending on how well students perform and what the situation is, then we will extend this course to actually also cover material from the Indian National Maths Olympiad to the International Maths Olympiad level, which is, of course, like if you can make it there, that would be quite incredible. And the duration of this would again be 8 to 10 sessions per month, with each session being roughly 1.5 to 2 hours. Okay. And here I wanted to emphasize an important point. Like many of you in the form wrote that you have some Olympiad experience. Some of you wrote about INMO, or I think one of you wrote about a pre-qualifying exam in Nepal or something like that. But a couple of you wrote about the IMO, that you have appeared or you are about to appear for the IMOs. So I wanted to emphasize that unfortunately, many Olympiads are floating in the Indian circuit with the same name, or names which are very close within it, like a few letters of each other. When you go outside India and you tell someone about the International Mathematics Olympiad, it means only one thing, which is the International Mathematics Olympiad represented by this logo, right? And I can tell you this from personal experience, and almost anyone will agree that the level of this Olympiad is way, way beyond the other Olympiads floating in the Indian circuit. And it's actually way beyond probably the toughest exam that you have in your mind, which is JEE. Like it is, winning an Olympiad at the IMO is probably, I think, one step below just getting your name into the history books of maths. It is pretty difficult and intense. So there is a question here. Good. All right. So this is about the Math Olympiad program. And if I haven't already motivated you enough or scared you enough, why should you do these courses? So the first thing is that one thing which we really hope will happen is that you will be able to experience the joy of maths through these programs. Forget about what fame or what other skills they might develop. You will be able to enjoy mathematics for once in your life. And it will obviously also boost your cognition. The other thing which will be, I guess, the biggest selling point of the course will be that it will help you to win medals in Olympiads, or at least progress further in the Olympiad cycle, in the Indian Olympiad circuit. And if you are able to do that successfully, it will be sort of a red carpet for you to enter into the big colleges, not just in India. In India, I know that CMI or the likes, like institutes similar to CMI, do have a special entry for Olympiad winners. But even colleges outside recognize Olympiads very heavily. And the same goes for financial and technical interviews. So if you are at some point going to apply for a job in a finance firm or a tech firm and you have an Olympiad medal in your CV, that counts for a lot. And more than that, during the course of your preparation, you will realize that it becomes very easy for you to ace these interviews, these different puzzle questions that are generally asked. So I think this was my interview experience, a small anecdote that I was in IIT Kharagpur doing mechanical, and We were all lost back then. Nobody knew what was mechanical, but we all did some engineering. And at the end of 4 years, when we sat for a job, the questions asked to us by companies which were the most prominent ones, like taking a job in mechanical engineering itself wasn't the first choice for almost anyone. And when you go to these other companies, all they used to ask, like at least I went to Citi's interview, Citibank's, and all they asked me are these kind of brain teasers and Olympiad like puzzles. So that unfortunately is not taught to you in the curriculum because these things are orthogonal. If you have some background, it will put you at a huge advantage.